So beautiful to be together. We'll start with a question that comes in advance as usual, and then I'll open it up to any questions that, bless you, that anyone here might have. Do you have to believe in God to reap the benefits of meditation? Is there a reason to meditate if you don't believe there is a divine being? So, meditation is the practice through which we experience the truth of who we are. Now, if you have a belief system that believes in God, and especially a belief system that believes that God is in everyone, like we do in the Hindu tradition, then you could think of meditation conceptually as that which is getting you in touch with the presence of God inside yourself. But if you don't believe in God, or you believe in God in a religion that does not believe that God is inside of us, then you could think of meditation conceptually as bringing you into touch with the deep truth of who you are. Because that, you don't need to believe in God to know that. So for example, if I go around and I say, okay, I'm going to pick on you. I won't, don't worry. But if I were, a school teacher who just sort of randomly picked on people, and I said, who are you? Well, most of you would give me your name. Chances are you would then say, I come from this and this place, so I'm so-and-so from such and such a place. You might tell me what your job is. You might tell me who your relationships are. So I'm so-and-so's son or daughter. So-and-so's husband or wife. If we were going a little deeper, you might confide in me and you might share that you struggled with this or you had issues with that these were your challenges, or maybe something from your history. Have I just about sort of summed up what most of you would give me if I did pick on you and say, who are you? Anything I left out? So, since unanimously that's what we would respond when someone asks, who are you? The issue with that is that this is what we refer to in Sanatana Dharma as ignorance, core ignorance. We don't believe in original sin, but we do believe in original ignorance. And the original ignorance says, I am all of those things. And the way that you know that you're not those things is, for example, you could change your name. People change their name when they get married. People change their name for other reasons. When you take sannyas, you change your name. So I'm not my name, because I could change my name for some very legitimate reason, or even just because I want to. I mean, in America, people legally change their names to all sorts of interesting things. But who you are is the same. Now your relationships, well, certainly the husband-wife one, you were you long before you got married. And as far as the son or daughter one, well, when your parents pass away, you will still be you, even though you no longer are the son or daughter of someone who is living in their body. You may have been born in a certain place. It's where the body came out of the factory. But maybe you've moved. I mean, like for me, right? So I come from America, but I live here. So who I am at the core is not of California. I mean, yeah, the cells of my body are probably still filled with, air and water and soil of California, because that stuff stays in your system a long time. But it's not who I am. And so all the things that we think of as who we are, you could easily dismiss them. Because we keep changing. Our jobs change, our relationships change. Where we are changes. And certainly the city in which, your body came out of the factory doesn't make you who you are. It's just where you were manufactured. So what meditation does is it actually gives us a way of knowing who we are. Because all of these things are that original ignorance. When we get into the whole body thing, the size, the shape, the color, these are all the ways we identify ourselves. But all of that keeps changing. It's clearly not who I am. So meditation is the practice through which we actually come to know who we are. Beyond the physical body, where it currently is, where it's been in the past, beyond its relationships to other physical bodies, beyond the way that it does what it does from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Meditation shows us who we are. Because when we quiet the mind, see, all of those identities are products of the mind. It's the mind that says this is who you are. And in meditation, when we become free from those confines of the mind, we have the opportunity to actually experience the truth of who we are. So even if you don't believe in God, you only have to believe in yourself to know that meditation is beneficial. You just have to believe that there is a you beyond the clothes, beyond the job, beyond the roles, the relationships. And if you want to know that you, that's why we meditate. And yeah, along the way you may find yourself face to face with an experience of the divine, whether you thought you believed in it or not. But you don't have to believe in the divine going into it. It will unfold because the truth of who you are is divine. And it doesn't matter what you call it. It doesn't matter how you see it. You may feel it as this boundless love in your heart. You may feel it as this boundless being, this consciousness that just is no boundaries, no borders, no beginning, no end. Well, you can call it that. Or you can call it God. It doesn't matter. You'll feel it and experience it when you meditate. So even if you don't believe in God, don't worry. Just meditate because you believe in yourself. And if you're going to spend, 80, 90, 100 years with someone 24/7, it's nice to have some idea of who they are. So meditation gives us that. Are there any questions that anyone here has? Yeah. Apko.
Thank you so much for answering the last question. It was beautiful. Ma'am, I have one question. You talked about Sanatan Dharma, which basically now we call it as Hinduism in the today's term. Now in Sanatan Dharma, we have so many demigods. In fact, we call it 38 crore, and if my maths is correct, it could be maybe 0.38 billion demigods. At the same time, Bhagavad Gita talks about one supreme personality of Godhead or supreme God. So my question is whether we should worship so many different demigods, or we should just focus on one supreme God, because ultimately He is the supreme. So that's what my question is.
Beautiful. So first of all, I think that the English translation of demigods, in any case, we're talking about the devtas, but I don't think demigods in any case is a right translation. It's been decades since I've studied French, but I know that a demi-tasse is half a cup. Like you can have a cup of coffee, or you can have a demi-tasse, which is half a cup. So whether it means half, whether it means significantly less, when we think of the devtas, we're not thinking of them as half a god, or a significantly smaller quantity of God. They're manifestations. There's no sense that the divine incarnations are somehow separate from the supreme reality. They're manifestations of it. And we've been given so many possible manifestations, right? We've been given all of Vishnu's avatars, which according to some lineages are avatars. According to the Krishna bhakts, he is the supreme reality. What matters most is that we realize, number one, there is nothing but God. That is the core of Advaita philosophy. The core of Vedanta is there is nothing but God. So one of the greatest myths about Hinduism is that it's a polytheistic religion. And when you start talking about crores of gods, obviously that sounds very polytheistic, right? Anything more than one is many, and if we've got hundreds of thousands of them, well, surely that's many. So we must be polytheistic. But we are not. We don't actually believe that there's that many individual gods. We don't even believe that there's just one God sitting somewhere in some capacity, separate from the world He's created. we actually believe there is nothing but God. And so when there is nothing but God, everything is divine. Now, that's at the very core, basic truth. We've got within Hinduism 2 core branches. There's more, of course, but for the sake of a short satsang answer, we'll stick with 2 branches. And we'll call them the branches of Advaita, non-dual, nothing but God. And then we'll call the other branch the branch of dualism. And the branch of dualism is the branch of bhakti. When I am loving God, I'm loving God as something that is separate from me. So those are the 2 main branches. However, those belonging to the dualist bhakti tradition, the really deep ones, are aware, deeply aware, that of course there is nothing but God. Of course God is not separate from them. But being in love feels so good. So to love Krishna, or to love Ram, or to love Shiva, or to love the Mother Goddess, for so many of us, feels so good. And yeah, we know it's all one. Yes, I know, but it's almost like, yeah, but I don't want to hear it. Because being in love feels so good. And it's so much easier to be in love if I can hold the beloved as something separate from me. Of course, at the core level, I know I'm one with God. But that juicy devotion of singing God's glories, right? I mean, could you imagine singing just me? It doesn't have nearly the ring to it that Hare Krishna does, right? It's so much nicer to sing Kirtan. Om Namah Shivaya. Rather than just me. It doesn't really ring. Hard to chant to, hard to dance to. But Om Namah Shivaya, Hare Krishna. There's such a beauty in the chanting, in the singing, in the loving. I mean, could you imagine sitting down and anointing yourself and doing your own arti? And ajeeb lagega. You'd feel very funny, and I think it would be very difficult to generate that level of bhav for God. Right? I mean, could you imagine doing your own arti? Now, that doesn't mean that we don't know that God is in us. We do. But it's so beautiful to be in love. And so, it's interesting when Krishna says the supreme reality, but in just another breath, he's extolling the virtues of bhakti yoga. And in another breath, he's extolling the virtues of karma yoga, to serve. Well, if all we're talking about is being aware of the supreme reality, there's nothing to do. No karma yoga, no bhakti yoga. Then all you've got is jnana yoga. But if you read the Gita, he's passionate, ardent, in how much he wants us to practice Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga, and how he explains they are one. So when you think about crores of gods, first of all, really all that means is an infinite number. Okay? It's like saying, I love you to the moon and back, right? Well, what it means is I love you infinitely. It's not like I love you, however many actual kilometers it is to the moon times 2. What it means is I love you infinitely. My love knows no bounds. To the moon and back. Like that's infinite. So when we talk about crores of gods, it's saying God is infinite. Of course. Because since everything is God, you want to worship God in a blade of grass? Go right ahead. You want to worship God in a drop of water? Go right ahead. Bhagwan Krishna says, however the devotee worships me, I appear to the devotee in that form. Not as long as it's one of these 7. I can do these 7, but I can't do any others. In whatever form means an infinite number of forms. Presumably with 8 billion people or whatever we're up to now, currently alive, plus however many have already died, plus however many are yet to come, we start to border on an infinite number of ways to worship God. So what we're saying is, however the devotee worships me, that's how I appear. So don't get caught up in that. Realize there's the supreme reality. And that supreme reality is manifest in everything. And so whether we are worshiping Bhagwan Krishna, Bhagwan Ram, Shankar Bhagwan, Hanumanji, Ma Durga, Ma Kali, whether we're worshiping Ma Ganga, whether we're worshiping our grandmother, or a tree, they're all divine. And so connect with that supreme reality in whatever form you find it most accessible. Yeah. And I think the Devtas are here. I think we've got all the stories of the Devtas really to teach us, because in many ways they seem very human in their characteristics and their attributes. Of course they're not, and they've all got divine powers, but right? There's fighting, and there's jealousy, and there's anger, and there's temper tantrums, and there's all sorts of things that we go through. And I think that we've actually been given, our rishis and sages and saints and have given us these beautiful ways of understanding the nature of life, the nature of ourselves, the nature of the universe. Because every one of the stories is something to learn from, right? We read the Puranas and we learn from them. There's always a message, there's always a teaching. There's always a story. And so I don't think it's so much about this is the end of where you're supposed to worship, but it's the awareness that we just keep offering. We keep offering to the divine in the form of Agni, Vayu, Jal, Indra. I mean, wherever we are, right? Just all sorts of different ways to just keep offering, keep offering, keep offering, keep praying, such that every minute, wherever we are, whatever we're doing, becomes an opportunity to offer. But let your devotion, your bhakti, your prayers go deeper than that and higher than that. Does anyone else have a question? Yes.
How can we gather courage to have difficult conversations with our loved ones without procrastinating or avoiding it?
Great. How do we have the courage? The courage to have difficult conversations with our loved ones without procrastinating. It's hard. It's hard because we want them to keep loving us. And when we have difficult conversations, there's always this fear. Well, if I say this, how will they take it? And that's why we have to be very careful about the way in which we have these conversations. We must have them, but you want to have them at a time in which you're not pressured for time, a time in which you both are calm, at peace. So you don't want to have the difficult conversation when you are in the throes of anger or pain. In those moments, you want to just do whatever you need to do to come back to center. The actual conversations should be had later on. You're angry at someone, you need to tell them, okay. But just wait till you're no longer angry to tell them that you were angry. Pujya Swamiji frequently counsels married couples and families, and one of the really beautiful teachings that I've heard him give a lot is pick one day a week, certain number of hours on that day, that's your fighting time. So Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Okay? You know, 10 a.m. Sundays is when we have all this. Which means that if you're angry on Tuesday evening, you wait. You just wait. And the beautiful thing about that is, sometimes there really are things that really are important and that need to be discussed, and we bring them up. But so frequently, that which upset you on Tuesday evening, by the time it's Sunday morning, you're like, it was nothing. So the first piece is make sure that you're not having the difficult discussion when you are emotionally triggered. You want to wait to have it until you are calm and grounded. You also want to choose your words very carefully. And a really good rule of thumb is use the word I a lot. Use the word you as infrequently as possible. So you don't want to say things like, you make me angry. Because no one actually can make you angry. We're opening the door to a solution. So you want to go in and you want to say, when these sorts of situations arise, not when you, but when this situation arises, I feel like this. That makes me feel pain. And if you've never had a conversation like that, it's good to kind of think in advance about how you're going to say that. Because ultimately the end result of these conversations is we want our relationship to be deeper and better. And so we need to go into it keeping the ultimate goal in mind, which is this relationship should be deeper, better, more and more love. Which means I actually want to solve it. Not just blame you and get, an apology. I want to go deeper with you in it. If all you need is an apology, then go into it and say, by the way, I seem to have this really stuck thing in my mind. Been holding on to it for 5 days. Would you do me a favor? Just say you're sorry and then we can have brunch. But if really what you want is change, then you've got to go into it in a way that isn't accusing, that isn't blaming, that's taking full responsibility for your own emotions, for your own feeling states. And you share them. And the other really good thing to think about is we don't necessarily have to have the entire conversation at once. So sometimes it may work to say, when these situations happen, this is how I feel. This is what's happening for me. And then to give the other person some time to think about it. Because when someone we love has just basically told us, even though they've said it the right way, we understand what they're saying is we make them angry, we hurt them. Somehow there is something wrong about us. Most of us react. And so a lot of times, if it's really a difficult situation, it's good to plan in advance that you're going to kind of do a part 1 and a part 2. So you begin it with just, I would like to just share with you. And then I would like if we could take some time and you can just think about it. And then maybe this evening or maybe tomorrow, you could come back and share how all of that lands for you. And the other piece of advice that I would give is try to be physically touching when you have the discussion. There's something about energetically being physically touching each other that just reminds you, whether you're sitting next to each other and it's just, the edges of your thighs are touching, whether you're holding hands, whether you're sitting in each other's lap, whatever it may be. But try to be physically touching. Don't sit at the dinner table at opposite ends of a dinner table or opposite ends of a desk. Because ultimately you're loved ones, you're one. And that's the core of what needs to maintain the relationship. And in terms of the actual courage to do it, realize that you're not serving anybody by not having the discussions. I mean, sometimes you are. Sometimes things are little, and ultimately if you can just let it go, so let it go. If you really can let it go, fantastic, nothing like it. Be like Ganga, just let it go. But if you can't let it go, and so you're just suppressing it and repressing it inside, then it's festering inside you, and it's actually creating distance between you and that person. And so that's when you need to have the courage, because you want to you want to protect the relationship. So yeah, if you can really let it go, beautiful. Just realize whatever they're doing, they're not trying to hurt me. Just anchor back in love. But if it does really need to be talked about, then you need to have the courage to know that you're going to a better place, a deeper place, a closer place. Beautiful. Good. Any other questions? Yeah, we'll take one more. Just you there.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
I've got my kids with me today,
Wonderful.
and I want you to give me an advice how I can connect my kids with God, because when I tell them to chant Ram 108 mala, one mala of Ram or Krishna, they don't like it. They say it's so boring, Mama. So I want to know how can I connect them with God, or bring to them this to the spiritual world.
Where are your kids?
Here they are.
Oh, great. Would you mind coming up here so I can actually see you? Come. It's so much nicer to talk when I can actually see you. Come. Inko ane dabiya. Come. You can sit right here in front. How about right there? Or right here with me even. Maybe that's better. Come here. How about that? Here. You can come here, and then your sister can sit next to you. Come. And then you can sit here. Okay. So, I understand that you think chanting is boring. No problem. Have you ever had a person you love in the world? Yeah? I don't mean romantic love. I mean anybody you love. Yes. Okay. Good. Now, think about that person you love. Okay? You don't even have to tell me who it is. Just think about that person you love. Now, think about what you love about them. Is it their elbow? When you love someone really deeply, think about what you love about them the most, okay? Is it their elbow? Right? No, that would be silly. Is it their knee? No? Is it their nose? No? So what is it? What do you love the most about the person you love?
Nature.
Their nature. Their nature. Okay, beautiful. Now, think about that nature of the person, okay? Now, everyone sometimes has bad moods, right? Everyone sometimes goes to sleep. So there are some times when they're not necessarily talking to you in a nice, loving way. Maybe just because they're sleeping. Or maybe because they're having a bad mood, a bad day. Right? So if you went deeper than their nature, because their nature sometimes might get a little cranky. Every once in a while, it happens to all of us. Right? So you love them even when they're in a bad mood, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then what is it that you love? Even when their nature is kind of not so good that day, what do you love about them?
The way they love us.
The way they love you? Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. And tell me about how they love you.
Unconditionally.
They love you unconditionally. So what about you do they love? Is it your elbow? Your knee? So what is it they love of you?
Me.
You. Who?
Person I am.
Great. Now, how long have they loved you?
Forever.
Forever. And how old are you? 13. So, who you are, I bet it has changed a lot in 13 years. I bet the way you were when you were 3 or 4 is very different than the way you are when you're 13, right? But they love you unconditionally, who you are. So that who you are, from 3 to 13, what is it that is the same? Because how you act is different. How you look is different. What you like to do is different. What is the same? From 3 to 13, what is the same in you? Think about it. What is it that's the same? Any ideas? Because when you were 3, you were saying I, right? I, that's mine. Me, I. And now you still say I. So that I has stayed the same. So who is that I? Who is that? Okay, no problem. Hold the thought. We're going to come back to it. So the person you love loves that I, which isn't the body, which isn't how I act, which isn't how I speak, and you love them even when their nature is bad. You love what's deeper than nature. Think about it. What do you actually love in them? Even when their nature's having a bad day. What is it of them that you love? Okay. So I'm going to give you some words. You tell me if that sounds right. Okay? Do you love their essence? Yeah? Is that the word? Like the essence of who they are, right? That core essence. Good mood, bad mood, doesn't matter. Right? That essence of who they are. Now, their body keeps changing. Their mood keeps changing. Their actions keep changing. But you love that essence of who they are that never changes. So you know what that is? That's what we call soul, or spirit, or essence. It's that which is not the body, not the actions, not the place I am in this world. It's that which is the same, whether I'm in a good mood, a bad mood, this body, that body. Right? Now, their soul and their spirit are one with God. That soul, that spirit, is actually one with God. When we say that God lives in us, well, the way that God lives in us is when we become aware of the soul, then we become aware that that soul of us is a reflection of God, exactly. So what you are really loving in them is God. If you can love them unconditionally, if you only love them when they give you what you want, no, right? You really love them unconditionally, right?
Yeah.
So what you're loving in them is God. Now, have you ever loved a pet? Or, well, that's okay. Have you ever hugged a tree? Have you ever hugged a tree? What does it feel like to hug a tree? Very comforting. Why do you think it feels so comforting to hug a tree? A tree doesn't even have arms. Why do you think it feels so comforting? Because I love hugging trees, by the way. It's one of my favorite things to do. Because when we hug trees, we connect with that presence in the universe, that energetic presence in the universe. The tree doesn't speak to us, doesn't even reach out and embrace us, doesn't tell you I love you, but we feel it. We feel that presence of the universe, which is why we are comforted. Because we feel that presence. That's the divine. That's God in the tree that you are feeling. When you feel comforted hugging a tree, it's because you feel that presence of God in you, connected to you. So don't worry about chanting. But just as you love people in this world, what I want you to do is I want you to think all the time about loving their essence. Whenever you love someone, just think in your mind about how much you love their essence. Because their essence is God. And as you love their essence, you will connect deeper and deeper. Because if you can love someone even when they're yelling at you, or you can love someone even when they're not doing what you want, then you're really connecting to them on a very deep soul-to-soul level. And that's connecting to God. So start there. Start there. And at the same time that you do that, we circle back to our first question about what it is in you that they love unconditionally. Well, that's your soul. That's the soul in you, because your body keeps changing. Surely they don't love every single action you do. Right? I mean, surely they don't love it when your clothes are all over the floor or you broke something. But what they love is your essence, your divine heart, your soul. And so what you should realize when you feel loved by them is that that is the presence of the divine in you that is being loved. Does that make sense? Good. So that's the way then that you're gonna connect to God, okay? You don't want to chant, no problem. But feel God in you. Feel God in them. And then I'm going to give you one last piece, which is that you should do some family seva, some kind of service. And when you serve, I want you to see and feel the divine in those you are serving. So work with children, work with old people, work with animals, work with trees, work with hungry people, work with sick people, whatever it may be. But as you are serving, whether you're planting trees, serving food, whatever you're doing, I want you to feel that presence of the soul, of the essence, of the tree you're planting, of the person you're feeding or helping in some other way. So then you will connect to the divine in them also. Okay? And that can be your chanting. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for such a beautiful Beautiful question. Wonderful. Wonderful. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. A beautiful morning and day to our family joining us from all over the world. I look so forward to being together with you all again tomorrow. And so much love to you all.